Bob's your dad box quickly out wide is coming across, showing speed Regal Key with Lily Langtree, but Bob's your dad got over very easily to lead. By 3 out of the straight on Lily Langtree, running through to third Regal Key, followed by Cosmic Kid. Utah Aston 3 deep, 14 Deuce McDougall, Time Magic and Skippers West last of all. Bob's your dad.
My father loved to punt, and on most afternoons we'd come home from school and he'd be calling up phone tab. This is 207 919 00, he'd say. This is 207 919 00, thank you. Race 5 at Eagle Farm, number 6, 4 units each way. Race 6, Flemington, number 12, there's 2 units each way, thank you very much. His transistor covered in a brown leather case, frayed at the edges, and the lino floor in the kitchen, and he loved to punt my dad, and Jesus, he lost a lot. He loved to punt my dad, and Jesus, he lost a lot. And I connect that with long drives in hot cars, hot leather seats which burnt your legs to touch, and non-specific coastal roads. And non-specific coastal roads. These aren't the places of magazines. These are nowhere in history writ. They figure in no mythology, not a bit. They're static on the radio and many years have passed. Scatter cassettes are lying on the floor and the windows are stuck fast dry. Out the windows there's roadside kill, and it's been several years I've been lost. All those years since my father died, I don't believe a minute of that, not for 1 second, not for 1 second. Because the bitumen, it flew into my face years ago. It stuck in my cheeks, stuck in my chin and caught in my eyes. It's been many years, all manner of cars, Chargers and other Valiants, Holdens, XCs, all manner of Japanese imports. I can remember them all, because I never forget and I remember everything. My father loved to punt, oh he lost a lot. And we've been up and down, we've been across, and me personally, so many bags of hot chips, so many meat pies. I've drunk so many cans of Coke, so many bottles of lemonade, chocolate milkshakes, so many cakes from cake shops, so many pies from pie shops, so many bananas from roadside stores. It's been many years now, and I remember my father, I remember him on the phone tap, and Jesus, he lost a lot. And all those years I've been lost, I've been driving, raising my index finger to the oncoming cars. Just to say, how's it going? Just like my dad used to do in the old Valiant. Oh, across rivers and towns, over plains, the Hay Plain, the Nullarbor, places which don't resonate with the tourists. The tourists have no idea of this history. For many years I've been lost. I've been stuck on roads and we've become a road ourselves. He lost a lot, my dad. He used to say on the phone tab, this is 207 919 00. Race 5, Randwick, thank you. Race 6, Eagle Farm, calling from some distant town, some distant place. Oh, the daptos of my life and the childhood, little signs that say such and such and such and such. Well, this is the road there, and this is the road back. This is the time I drove so far and so long. This is the time I ate that custard tart. This is 207 919 00. All the while I've been dragging something. All the while from Cairns to Broome and back again. All these things are holding me back, so I drive to another coastal town, look for another surf point, look for another right-hander coming around the bend. And as I do, the radio flickers to life, and on the races come from some distant town, from Eagle Farm, from Flemington, from Eagle Farm or Flemington. I hear my father saying those afternoons. This is 207 919 00, thank you. Race 5, Eagle Farm, number 6, 4 units each way. Race 6, Flemington, number 12, 2 units each way. He lost a lot, but geez, he loved a punt. He lost a lot, but geez, he loved a punt. He was on the punt, on the punt, on the punt, on the punt, on the punt.
Totes in the frame, number 1, Baboon, 350, 170, 8 Oak Bar, 170, 6 Alicia Lass, $2, Quinella, $6.90.
The magic's either there or it's not. You can't force it. The magic's either there or it's not, and God knows you can't force it. The magic's either there or it's not. I'm thinking about a magic time and a magic place. It's when the dew is forming on the grass. It's forming on the windscreens of the cars. And you can hear it now. You can hear your mum saying, just be home before the streetlights go on. Be home before the streetlights go on. It's a magic time and a magic place. Because the magic's either there or it's not. You can't force it. The magic's either there or it's not. God knows you can't force it. Just be home before the streetlights go on and dash home through those long summer twilights. Dash home with grass stains on your knees and the oily smell of the ocean not far away filling your nose. Dash home to the roast-filled kitchens, the barbecued backyards, the Sullivans on TV lounge rooms, the Onkaparinga driveways and bedrooms, and the Dennis Lilly driveways. Yeah, just be home before the streetlights go on. Because the magic's either there or it's not. You can't force it. The magic's either there or it's not. Oh no, you can't force it. No way. So win that game of continuous tips. Light the last welcome spring. Fire the final ball shooter and wrap up the slip and slide. Pull the stumps from the ground, pick up the sloppy joes marking the try line. Put your surfboard on your head and turn from the beach because the day is over. The Aussie pole's eaten, the sunny boy sucked, your lager switched off and the pennies are flashing. Game over. Game over. Because the magic's either there or it's not. And you can't force it. The magic's either there or it's not. God knows you can't force it. You just have to be home before the streetlights go on. Be home before the streetlights go on. Yeah. Be home before the streetlights go on. And straggle down those streets. Run through the fences. Up the boulevards. Look for the flicker of the light. Watch it shoot along the telegraph poles and time it. Make sure you know the time of its arrival outside your mum's window exactly. The dew forming on the grass, the mist of whipping down around the corner. Just be home before the streetlights go on. Just be home before the streetlights go on. It was one of those nights when all we did was fight about who would get the rights to call this song our own. It was one of those nights when all we did was fight about who would get the rights to call this song our own. And all the effort and the love and just left out on the landing, that's fine with me, it's the keys to you I'm handing. I don't care anymore because it's the keys I'm leaving out on the landing. It's your whole place, it's the pot plants and the lot. You can take your cat, you can kick your dog, I don't care anymore. Just take the bowl, take the whole thing and just walk out on the street, walk down the road and don't turn back. Because it's the keys to you I'm handing and I'm standing on the landing and I'm turning around and that's it, I'm gone. Oh dear. And I remember doing nothing on the night Grant McLennan died. And on the night Joe Strummer died, I did stuff all. And I stayed at home the night Bobby Lim died. And the night Tim Mackay died. Oh, I remember nothing about Billy Thorpe's night or David McComb. It just disappeared. And I stayed home. I'm sure I just watched TV. And I kept going. It was one of those nights when all we did was fight about who would get the rights to call this song our own. It was one of those nights when all we did was fight about who would get the rights to call this song our own. And I knew you loved that song, and I knew that you were right, and I knew that I was never wrong these days. But things that you forgot are the things that I've not got. I don't remember anymore about the night Grant McLennan died, or the night Joe Strummer died, or the night David McComb died, or the night Bobby Lim died. Looking into old photographs, I imagine the feelings of those particular snapshot days. The temperatures and the sounds and the smell of the honeysuckle we'd rip the top off and lick. I search for myself in those crowds of silent noise. The faces of people who were then friends, expressing their essential sound and essence through frozen smiles in the angle of their eyes. The angle of their eyes. Some people are just naturally at the centre of every photograph they're in. Or faces and bodies and light are always beaming their way. Then there's others off to the left or to the right, or who've just seemingly tacked on to that group embrace like an afterthought. An afterthought. And you remember them. And you remember them for that fact. They tried hard, and while it was never quite enough, it was also just a bit too much. Well, that was before the accident, or just after he started going out with her. Or on the ski trip that time, the Jindabyne Hotel, near the fireplace. It got ugly with a girl from the North Shore named Bridget. You must watch those girls from the North Shore named Bridget. Bring you undone every time. Well, that time the weddings, parties, anything concert. Selena's at the Coogee Bay Hotel. You crowd surfed all the way to the bar. Came back with 2 Jim Beam and Cokes. Crowd surfing still and didn't spill a drop. Didn't spill a drop. Didn't spill a drop. That time we went to Townsville. All the rivers were dry all the way, but we found a waterhole back there somewhere. We went swimming, feeling guilty, and we sang, "When the river runs dry, hunters and collectors, we will return to the scene of the crime. Committed no crime, we're only 19 years old. Nothing much mattered. Victor Harbour or Margaret River. The photographs we took. Nirvana, the first big day out. 1992, the Hordern Pavilion. You held a camera above the crowd. You held a camera above the crowd. And Gowrie Point. Someone backed over my 6.2 Dalberg in their 4-wheel drive, squashed the thing flat. That was the end of it. That was the end of it. There's another time that I remember. And I'm about 8. My eyes are shining. Aware and howling like the dog Anthony I'm patting. My East jersey, red, white and blue against the wild grass. Yeah. These pictures tell us how far we've come and how far you've gone. You had long hair. Your face was screwed in laughter. Your eyes were unsuspecting. They were huge and desirous. They wanted a lot. They desired the whole thing. Everything was unfurling from that point on. They wanted it all. The thing I've realised is that, unlike in photographs and in thoughts, unlike in photographs and in thoughts, everybody's eyes are always much smaller in real life. Everybody's eyes are always much smaller in real life. Everybody's eyes are always much smaller in real life. Everybody's eyes are always much smaller in real life. You're as good as hot Milo on a July night. You're as good as a sneeze. You're as good as a click in your ears when you yawn. You're as good as the smell of chlorine, better than petrol. As unbelievable as the fact my mum's cats remember me. You're as good as a beer in a tiled pub after 10 hours on the highway. You're as good as the hard soles of feet after 6 months of summer. You're better than Guinness, better than Spain. You're as good as a sleep-in, as incredible as the silence of the sea. as good as a chalk top at the movies, as good as the ends of newly cut hair, as good as Oscar and Lucinda, as good as Bliss. You're as good as Jim Beam, as good as Place Without a Postcard, better than Diesel and Dust. You're as good as a pie from the Woodburn Cake Shop. You're as good as an Enish tart. You're that good. In 1980, when my sister was 19, she found an old car with the keys in the ignition near the bank of the estuary. She was 19 too when she left here altogether. She never came back. In the winter of 1984, an East Coast low pressure system destroyed the fleet and their moorings, smashed the jetty and flattened half the town in a hailstorm which the Weather Bureau somehow forgot to mention might happen. Somehow forgot to mention might happen. The beaches on either side of the inlet disappeared in one day, and the rocks of the breakwater became cliffs overnight. It was that night that she called from somewhere down the coast, said a wobbegong shark had been washed into her local swimming pool at the height of a storm. "What do we do?" she said. "Get a blanket," I said. "What for?" she said. "Get a blanket," I said, "and pick it up like that. Just pick it up like that." On the Eyewitness News of the World that night, I saw my sister with a blue-eyed man holding the edges of a dark and wet blanket. And they were hauling a shark out of a pool. And it gasped for air before they dropped it back in the sea. And it swam away very quickly. It swam away very quickly. Was built back at the beginning of the decade. Concrete blocks were bulldozed down the beach beside the river mouth, starting on the arse end of a full moon tide. The full moon tide. A low one. Solstice. The whole town ate sandwiches on blankets as Johnny King pushed the levers of the bulldozer back and forth. And the air was filled with blue smoke. The air was filled with blue smoke and the fumes. And all the men gathered to watch the operation. Oh, they knew what they were doing. At least they thought they did. The concern of fathers awaiting a birth, eager to be of assistance, but betrayed in their efforts by the lack of any specific knowledge. Specific knowledge. They knew none of the necessary procedures. Just because men know about boats Doesn't mean they know how to build a break wall. Ah, they're kidding themselves. They're kidding themselves, some of them. The break wall was built back at the beginning of the decade. They needed it. That river swam wild. The arse end of a full moon tide of the summer solstice. The arse end of a full moon low tide of the summer solstice. You could have walked to bloody New Zealand. Tide was that low. All the men fussed and commented, said this should be like that and that should be like this. Johnny King just got on with the job of building the breakwater, and he did it his way regardless. And so it was done. The breakwall was built back at the beginning of the decade. Back at the beginning of the decade. On the arse end of a full moon tide. The arse end of a full moon tide. A little one. Some other dream I had, what did it involve? It's some other highway and some other car, some other season, some other person, some other reason, some other silence, some other collection of towns to be passed through, passed by, us too. God knows we're in it, up to our eyeballs. Some other dream, some other city, some other specific night and the quality of light. It's a pale light, European winter, break your heart and break your head. Dreams of memories and moments, because I remember everything. I remember everything. Some other dream light, the long days of June and July in the elbow crook of the Bay of Biscay. Specific night, washed hair with beer, cigarette shirt, days of wine feet and coffee eyes, up to our eyeballs. Some other dream of some other city, some other specific night, and the quality of light, some other country, some other summer, some other lover. Empty water, a wave on a beach in the silent night. The San Sebastian sunset or the back end of a Basque day. Or a place without a postcard of northern lights forgotten, southern stars blurred. A dream we lean towards touching all the way to the oncoming day. It's a koala spring evening. Stare out to sea and see the ships at night or some specific dream. Feeling of towns and unlocked gates, laughing at the languages and speaking another tongue, just because we can, just because we feel like it, just because you want to. Some other specific dream, some other city, some other night, the quality of light, semesters of hope. I've taken a bachelor's degree in non-bachelorhood, an undergrad's diploma in kissing and being kissed. I've just done a master's in unbelievability. I had some other dream I had. What did that involve? A sky of absolute perfection, the perfect sandwich, the perfect beer, chilled glass, Bilbao. or Lisbon, or that time in Prague. I've none at all, I've none regret. I've no reason, no silence of the night. Laughing in arguments, each fueled by the other. Undecided, the explosion of swearing and some other dream I had, with streams in their B-side. The moment between sleeping and waking, dreaming and knowing, that's where we'll get, that's where we'll take it, because I remember everything. I remember Melbourne in 1993. The clock on the silo did indeed say 11 degrees. It did. Out on the pier, it was a long way from some other dream I had, some other specific sense of night, some other city, some other town, and the quality of light. That's good enough for me. It's good enough for me. And I'll take it. We walk through the Heathrow streets at dawn, and we gather in the local pubs east of Angel Alley, and the flat skies above England gather slowly to a permanent dusk. And how I went to Fulham in the night on buses, in the dark, lonely London night on buses, and I saw the black Houses of Parliament, near where I worked on a building site in the desolate winter 1995, 96. And I heard the bells and chimes coming from Westminster Abbey as I swept floors and I carried wood. London still exists. London still exists. London still exists. Afternoons in the coldest winter of my soul, going all the way up to Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park just to hear people speak of damnation and sex and the innermost bell clang of the jumbled thoughts which resonated with mine that winter. Because London still exists. London still exists. London still exists. Oh, do you remember that night out? Do you remember that time? Walking home through streets still cobbled with stones, the low gutters towards and past the E1, past Angel Alley streets on the bright fruit stalls and the bright street market, and the cold faces past Ilford and the Island where Billy Bragg first played, and girls in black jackets smoking silk-cut cigarettes at bus stops as if their lives depended upon it. As if their lives depended upon it, because London still exists. London still exists. And the lorries are passing through Wapping. They ain't stopping. They're going all the way on down the A Road to Dagenham and Grace Thurrock, Bitsy, Battersea, etc. and so forth, because you remember the song, you remember the way it was. The Angel Alley streets, descending days, expiring work visas, and the loves we lost. Jamaican sounding summers, or trips to the Westway, Portobello pubs across mini-cab nights. Nigerian navigation back through football streets. Reverberating all the way from Stamford Bridge and across the night to the home of the Hammers and oversized cans of Tennent's in the hands of grown men. London still exists. London still exists. London still exists. There's the underground arteries and the black suit tunnels that make you think that Victoria is still on the throne. Hiding in an enclave is Dickens with a filthy fingered glove to grab you and say, hey, come here mate, what are you doing, come here. Oh, the slanting terraces, extending the threading streets and all the sadness that descends upon me. All the sadness that descends upon me. The low pressure bathtubs, the lime fuzz around the top of a kettle and the rim of the pots. London still exists. London still exists. London still exists. And tell me, oh won't you tell me, is it still raining there in Fulham? Is it still raining there in Hammersmith? Is it still raining there in Paddington or Shepherd's Bush? Is it still raining there in Croydon or Leicester Square, on Waldorf Street, Portobello Road? Is it still raining there up on Savile Row? Is it still raining there in Brick Lane? Just say one thing. If you ever come back, just drop by and have a cup of tea. If you ever come back, just drop by, have a cup of tea, because London still exists. London still exists. Silence here, weighing all night through our sleep. And it's a great silent night, and it's been here all our lives. It's a quiet Australian night. Through Broadway and the rest. My brother and I keep driving towards the sunset, heading west. Great Australian Silence. Great silence here, waiting all night through our sleep. And it's the great silent night of Australia and all our lives. All through Broadway, and we are heading west, and all the rest. Featherfoots and the ghosts, and the empty melting roads. How do you think it feels? How do you think it feels? We swam out to the edge of the reef, cuts across my skin. The salt plains west of Pimba. I don't know where to begin. Australian silence. The great Australian silence. And I'll dip my toe in Cottesloe, in bare feet in the heat. How do you think it feels? How do you think it feels? There's the sound of my wheels and the great Australian silence and the same Australian heat. The great Australian silence and the same Australian heat. The great Australian silence and the same Australian heat. Of movement on those coastal nights. But the girl I loved who didn't love me, what happened to her and where is she? The girl I loved who didn't love me, what happened to her and where is she? She is in the blinding sunlight. She says that she's alright. She tells me not to call. She's taken my number off her wall. The end of my roads, she is in a shack in Protester Falls. Beds of bracken, what will happen? What will happen? We lose people in the sunlight, lost in the shadow, lost in the silence. fight and she'll take flight. Back to Spring Hill, back to Redcliffe. A house in the blinding sunlight. The girl I loved who didn't love me. What happened to her? Where is she? She is in the blinding sunlight. She says that I'm alright. She is in the blinding sunlight. She tells me I'm alright. And there's a radio with an old leather case. Where did she go? It all connects. It all makes sense. In faces and silence, we lose people in the sunlight, in the shadows and in the silence. She is in the blinding sunlight. She says that she's alright. She tells me not to call. She's back at Spring Hill, back in Redcliffe, back in the sandy path, the back of Protester Falls. She is in the blinding sunlight. She is in the blinding sunlight. The girl I loved who didn't love me. Girl I loved who didn't love me. She is in the blinding